That's how much the average American puts in the atmosphere. Of that, how much is associated with feeding you? Well, so for the average American, it can be something like 4 metric tons, so 4 out of 14. And for you, it could very well be around 2,200 kilograms, 2.2 metric tons. So the difference that you made by the dietary shift that you just described is going from 4 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year for your food to something a little over 2. So you dropped maybe 45% of your emissions associated with food production and consumption. Overall, you dropped from 14 to something like 12.
Okay, so the other question would be this. How many acres of trees would it take to offset my, say, 12, my current carbon footprint?
Trees are tricky, you know. So here's why. Suppose you could label the tree that you planted, wait 100 years until it is one of those colossal oaks, and then make sure that this becomes some artisan, priceless piece of furniture that nobody will ever let it degas back into the atmosphere. That's genuine sequestration. Otherwise, if you're just talking about plain vanilla deciduous forest like we have here, I mean, depending on the year, the temperature, the precipitation, and so forth, you're talking for a hectare something like between 2-3 metric tons of carbon sequester per hectare a year, to as high as 8 if the year is just so, you know. Okay, and on average, something like 4 to 5 metric tons every year. That baby takes down about 4 to 5 metric tons per hectare. Okay, so now you're saying 12, let's call it 15. Okay, so you need 3 hectares to complete, but to have those hectares with your name on them and share them with nobody else, then you completely offset your 15 metric tons. And if we just said before, oh, I don't do 15, I do 12. Okay, so you don't need 3 hectares, you need 2.6.
Okay, thank you very much.
And
of course.
How big is a hectare?
Hectare is 2.47 acres. Just it's 10,000 square meters for people like me who think in SI units.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
But it's 2.47 acres.
Okay. So we need something like close to 10 acres per person worth of trees in order to.
Yeah.
All right. I got that in my backyard. So, Mary G, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, you were talking about how humans aren't responsible for volcanoes, but we are, I think, responsible for some earthquakes with our fracking. And who knows if we will graduate and do something to cause, I don't know, the heating to cause volcanoes. But anyway, I do think I think we're causing earthquakes with the fracking.
No, that is a fact. There's no question about it. But earthquakes, you know, I mean, if your house crashes down on account of an earthquake that was generated by fracking, that's most unfortunate, and I feel your pain very much. But it is not related. It's a problem, but it is not related to the problem of global warming.
Right, and so obviously we're in a grave situation, whether it is tomorrow or in 50 years, you know, from, you know, a geological period of time that's a blink of an eye. Do you see the necessary urgency in any sort of meaningful response to what's happening to the planet, and then subsequently all the people who live on this planet?
Absolutely not. I see extremely casual, lackadaisical response, if that. And that is true about our response to climate change in general. I mean, there are some great success stories. For example, wind and solar are the most rapidly increasing sectors of the power generation. Well, that sounds great, except that they are still rather modest compared to the totality of power that we generate. So you can look at the half cup half full or half empty. It's up to your to your disposition. But specifically in diet and agricultural policies, no, we are aggressively pursuing the worst policies that we possibly can. And now you may say, oh, those House Republicans, they'll take us to the grave. No, but look, I mean, we had 8 years of Obama. And who does he put at the helm of the USDA? The former governor of Illinois. Or Iowa, excuse me, with Vilsack at the helm. Do you think that we are going to get meaningful positive change? And that's the best administration we could possibly hope for in our lifetime. So and what does Biden do once he gets in the White House? Reinstate Vilsack. No, we are aggressively pursuing making the agricultural policy worse. We're not doing anything that I can see to improve it. Now, they will point to some 50 million to NIFA and 12 million to another program, long-sighted programs in the USDA. The USDA has very smart people, and some of them are allowed to think positively and are putting forth brilliant ideas. The problem is, what impact do these people have as opposed to the dairy lobby or the corn lobby or the ethanol lobby, and on and on and on? All of those people who want to take us down the worst agricultural policy paths possible. They have the upper hand. They have it in the Biden administration. They had it in the Obama administration. And I don't want to even think what will happen under another Trump administration. Again, purely from the standpoint of agricultural policy.
Are there any governments around the world that you think are a model, or at least trying to get it right? And if so, what are the policies that they're putting into place that you think are right-minded?
Well, in general, Western and Northern Europe are doing useful things. Like, for example, I mean, we had a paper some years back, and it wasn't the point of it, but it was just kind of like on the side of it, we saw, we compared different types of beef production. And wouldn't you know it, that the single best one with the lowest emission was in Sweden. That's a result of something. People are doing there something that should be done and isn't done in the US or in Australia or in Israel.
Why do you think that is with Sweden? Is that so you think that it's a policy decision that they made that brought out that, or is it just that the culture doesn't eat a lot of beef? What's going on?
No, it's mostly for historical reasons. In other words, the main thing is that most of their beef production is not for the sake of producing beef, but it is actually from the dairy herd. These are black and white cows, no brown cows, okay? And I showed earlier the huge dominance of methane emission from the mothers themselves. Well, we need both beef mothers and dairy mothers to become pregnant, but for two different reasons. The dairy one is simply because you want them to produce milk. You need them to be postpartum. There's no two ways about it. The beef mother, because that is what we fatten, the steers that she gives birth to. So if you combine the two purposes like they do in Sweden, in other words, it's a dairy cow, its primary purpose is to produce milk. For that, we need her to be pregnant, and most pregnancies, lo and behold, end with a calf. So we have now a calf. Okay, so we'll fatten the calf and sell it. That would be nice extra beef. That's not our purpose, but it's a nice little extra. That's why.
What is the impact? So you talked about meat specifically, right? So eating the cow. What about the dairy industry? If if we eat a whole food plant-based diet, and now not only do you not have the brown cows for beef, but you don't have the black and white cows for dairy, what is the impact on reducing methane gas if we did something like that?
Let me see if I get it. Are you saying if we eliminated both beef and dairy?
Correct.
What was that?
Yes, both beef and dairy.
Oh, well, we would here. Let's look at it. Why pontificate idly when we can look at the numbers? I wanted the poor Nemechek paper. That is, for some people, that is the Bible. 1 second, where is it? It is here. Okay. So livestock and fish farms, 30% of all food emissions. Okay, it doesn't further breaks it down, but I would venture a guess that half of that is beef. Another 30% of that is dairy, and other, pork, poultry, and eggs are the remainder. So about 80% of this 30% will be gone if we eliminated both dairy and beef.
And is
Does
beef,
that make sense?
yeah, so it would have a significant impact on
Yes.
on this. And you said something. I think the change as far as our diet, if we took out beef, would be like an 85% reduction. Is beef so impactful compared to other animals because of how much beef we're eating in relation to those other animals? Or is
no.
it inherent about cows and perhaps their methane, or what would it be?
It's not necessarily only the methane. That is extremely important. But again, I can show you the numbers right here. Take a look. For example, let's look at this ration. Okay, that's characteristic of typical American beef. Okay, this is the contribution from 0 to here is the contribution of methane. From here to
You're not sharing
here.
your, I don't think, or at least I'm not seeing your shared screen. That might just,
Yes. I will, sorry. Now I am sharing. Okay, see it?
yes.
Beautiful. Okay, so I'm looking at this bar simply because these rations are kind of typical of the American beef industry. Okay, so from 0 to here to something like 150 kilogram CO2 equivalent per kilogram of beef protein, that's methane contributions. From here until the total, which is shown in blue, those are the contributions of the combined contributions of CO2 and nitrous oxide together. So here is methane, and from here to here, nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide.
Okay. So thank you. And we have like 1 minute left. So I just want to ask you this one quick question.
Yes.
Would reducing methane have a greater impact on climate change over reducing CO2 or doing the things that produce CO2? My understanding from previous speakers is that methane leaves our atmosphere a lot faster than CO2 does, and is also a lot more impactful than CO2.
Yes, so there's some truth to that. So here's the deal. CO2 on human timescale is basically a forever gas. You know, I mean, 600,000 years from now, if we stopped emitting completely yesterday, okay, 600,000 years from now, we would still have about 10-15% of the CO2 in the atmosphere warming the planet, okay? With methane, it could hardly have been more different. You know, it oxidizes into trivial amounts of CO2 on a time scale of 15 years. So in a century, you have zero, okay? So if you are looking for reversibility, in other words, you're willing to make a change, but you want it to be reversible so that you don't get yourself in a pickle that you can never dig yourself out of, okay? Then methane offered that reversibility because, you know, you stop emitting it at some point and it disappears in 50 years. If, on the other hand, you care about warming in the next 10-15 years, then you would much rather emit CO2 and not methane, because over a time scale of a decade, methane is, you know, over 100 times more powerful.
Great, and we are out of time. It was really just starting to heat up, so I wish we had some more time, Doctor. Thank you so much for all the information that you shared with us today, and the work that you do. If we could unmute the audience so they could share their appreciation for that.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
That was so
Thank you so
Oh my
much.
gosh, answered questions I had for a long time. Thank you.